Tonight, for the first time, we're going to have Liz Kosa, the director.
Okie doke, I'd like to call the Whatcom County Ferry Advisory Committee meeting on February 8th to order. Could you please start the recording? First, I would like to thank community member and firefighter Michael Godshall for assisting us with the hybrid Zoom meeting tonight. I would also like to call the roll. So, Janice Cottrell. Richard Fry.
Here.
Pam Gould, I'm here. Diane Harper.
Here.
Todd Legacy, let us know he could not be here. Carol Lant also let us know she's traveling. Tom Philpott.
Here.
Catherine Shornick.
Here.
And we have one open position. Perfect. So could we please stand for the flag salute? And then we're going to have a moment of silence while we concentrate on bringing our best selves forward for this discussion. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So first off, I would like to welcome a new Catherine. Now she is so welcome. I would also like to welcome Elizabeth Kosa, the Director of Public Works, who's here to share a number of things tonight. We're very excited that she came. I'd like to welcome John Scanlon, one of our county council representatives.
Just quick, your audio went back to pause because it was an echo. Sorry. So just.
Oh, there. Okay, I'll sit down in front of here and then it'll probably be better. So I'd also welcome John Scanlon and also Senior Master Gary Poole of the Whatcom. If I just take it down a little bit. Okay. Do you think I should turn it off and use this instead?
Just getting an echo.
Okay. Pardon me? Oh, Janice. Okay, let it be recorded that Janice Cottrell is in fact here. Okay. So because Catherine is the new member of our committee, we are going to have a motion. First, I could ask, is there anyone on the committee that would like to volunteer to be the secretary? Speaking, having no volunteers except Catherine, who I believe is volunteering, I need a motion to elect Catherine as the secretary of the Whatcom County Advisory Committee. Second? Thank you. Great. Thank you, Catherine. We really appreciate it. So it's been seconded as you are. Oh, I guess we have to take the vote through. All in favor of Catherine being secretary, signify by saying aye. Aye. Carries unanimous. Okie doke. Next, are there any changes to the printed agenda that anyone wants to make? And I think everyone should have an agenda on their desk, and I sent them out with the packet earlier. If not, we'll proceed with the printed agenda. The second order of business is to adopt the minutes from our last meeting. The minutes came out with the packet with your agenda for you to all. Are there any amendments to the minutes?
I have an amendment, I'm not sure, exactly what I said, but there is one of two ways to correct what's in the front end. One way. you- I'm not sure exactly what I said because I haven't played back the video, but in the minutes, it should either say that, about $30 on a single item, excuse me, about 30,000 was, the typical top for maintenance and repair expenses in past years. Or you could say that the, annual, top was about 300,000 in prior years. So I'm not sure which I actually said, but the minutes need to say one of those rather than the other. But it could be on page 2. Questions and comments about that is good to know from the new pages.
We're going to get picked up by anybody because you didn't unmute, like whatever device someone's speaking. We have to like, yeah, because that's why I couldn't, what you just said wasn't heard outside of this room.
I'm a technology Luddite, so I'm trying to be good.
So the suggestion that you had made for the minutes changes on page 2, under questions and comments, the first bullet to read average expenses were approximately 200,000 to 300,000 annually, with the most expensive individual items around 30,000 until the $800,000 dolphin. So that's the only change.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so let the minutes stand corrected as Janice noted. And once those corrections, the minutes will stand corrected as Diane noted, and we will deliver a corrected set of minutes to Jill, the county council. Okay, so the next order of business is, it is my pleasure to introduce Elizabeth Cosa, the Director of Public Works. Liz came to Whatcom County with a rich background in maritime management and from the position of Chief of Staff of the Washington State Ferry System. She was a great fit to lead Public Works in one of the few counties that has a ferry. And she is going to share news about our RAISE grant that Public Works secured for a new electric ferry and more about our electric ferry project. And later in the agenda, we will also spend time on the new code proposals, but right now we're going to hear from Liz. So thank you, Liz.
No, so let's switch. You mute and then you unmute because then it'll work perfect.
Do we need this or?
No, I mean, as long as you speak loud, everybody.
Can they hear me
Yeah,
now?
so
It's unmuted, so they should be able to hear me.
I hear you.
And then we'll have to turn that one down. Well, hello, everyone. I'm gonna refer to you as the Ferry Advisory Committee. So it's just less of an acronym.
Right.
Is that okay?
Ferry, yes.
Ferry Advisory Committee?
Totally great.
Is that okay? I can say Whatcom County every time if you'd like, but I'll just say Ferry Advisory
I
Committee.
forgot to have everyone introduce.
Oh, you wanted that
You
first?
want to do that?
How about I introduce myself and then
Okay.
if everyone will, that'd be great. Okay, so thank you, Pam, for the intro. Yes, I have a long maritime background. I actually still am a merchant mariner. I've been a merchant mariner for going on, what are we in 2024 now? 26 years. So I have a degree in marine engineering and I have a chief engineer's license, unlimited. So unlimited horsepower. So I have quite a bit of experience in that steam, diesel, and gas turbine. So I have a lot of background in the maritime, and I've sailed all over the world. So I have a deep-rooted love for the maritime, which is why I'm wearing a little bit of maritime flair today. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm glad I'm here. Really what I wanted to say as far as the Ferry Advisory Committee, I want to thank all of you for being a part of this. It's a huge commitment. You guys have to, you all, I shouldn't say guys, all of you put your own time into this. You don't get paid to do it. It's blood, sweat, and tears. You guys are truly committed. And when asked, when we were kind of going through the reconstitution of what Public Works thought the Ferry Advisory Table could bring to, our committee could bring to the table, hands down, I said they're absolutely necessary. You are the conduit for the community. You're the eyes and the ears. We look for you as an advisory committee to give us advice on the things that are important to your community, which are important to all of Lummi Island and folks off island. So really appreciate that commitment. I know there's a lot there. You're going to provide us important feedback on this code. We know that we're getting into fairs next. We got some really big items that are coming up. So between the code, the fairs, and then we have, of course, the new vessel. There's a lot that needs to happen on there, and it means a lot of help that we're going to be asking from all of you. So another thanks for that commitment. In way off in the future, when that is settled, the dust is settled with the new boat and the upgraded terminals, we're going to be looking at automated ticketing. I know that's something that has been in the resolution for, well, Roland, you would know that, how long that's been.
6 years.
6 years. So we eventually want to circle back to that. And then if we could really look ahead, I'd love to have at it with State Ferries passenger code of conduct, and that's how we treat each other on the boat. That's how the crew interfaces with. So it would be really cool to do that. We also need a name boat at some point. So there's a lot of really fun work. We need to put, we're looking at potential artwork on the boat and what that looks like. I know you guys probably want to do some kind of community flair with that as well, which would be awesome. And maybe we could have the tribal influences there as well. So can you not hear me?
No, you have a mustache. There's
I
an
know.
effect.
I saw it.
Okay.
I
just
don't
letting
have a
you know.
mustache though.
But just on Zoom, you have a mustache.
I can lighten the mood. Why do Italian women have mustaches? So
I think it's in your settings.
Your settings.
Oh, my settings.
Maybe.
No, your settings, you have a mustache.
It's not her computer.
I told you I had a mustache on.
I apologize.
That's all right.
Not even April yet.
I have thick skin. You know what? I'm just gonna leave it
Okay.
so I don't mess with it and we can continue. Are you guys okay with me having a mustache? It's so I can look more like my Italian father. I am Italian, so there you go. All right. So thank you for your participation. I just wanted to let you guys know, I do think you're incredibly important and the value that the advisory committee brings to us. I also want to take the time to introduce Kim Boone. So the county council was nice enough to approve us for a part-time FTE for Kim. She is going to be helping you, assisting you with a variety of administrative items. That's in that Whatcom County Code, what is it? 2.145 .060 is what she is here to help you guys with. So that would be with the facilitation of the online Zoom meetings. That's the helping doing the PO for the purchase order to get this room rented. A little administrative work. Requests will come through Roland, and I'd like you to copy in Kim as well moving forward. So she's really there to help you out. One really important thing with Kim that we need to be sure to adhere to is because she's a part-time employee, we cannot use her over 16 hours a week. That is really important. And if you're asking why that's so important, it will actually hurt her retirement. And we do not want to mess with her retirement at all. She's going to be very vocal.
Be very
If you
vigilant.
guys get close to that, just keep that in mind. So as you guys put together your meetings or you're asking for assistance, administrative help from her, she'll be updating you with her hours. It's just to keep it on the back of your mind because we don't want to mess with her personal financial situation, and we are very fortunate to have her.
Okay.
Kim, do you want to say a little bit about your background and what
Sure.
you came from
Sure.
and your skill set? She's pretty talented and we're really lucky to have her.
Standing up and so I can see everybody. So I am retired as of July 2022. And before I retired, I worked for the state and Department of Social and Health Services. And I was a dementia specialist. So if you have any question about dementia, sorry?
I said it will fit in well with what we are.
You, Michael, the shade.
Here.
Well, no, I should keep it closer. You can see a little that to see
Come on up here,
the,
Kim.
the Zoom audience.
I should be closer to
Close
you.
to the microphone.
Yeah,
the speaker.
that's the mic.
No problem.
And people.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. And so in my retirement, I am traveling more than I expected, and so a little part-time job is really good for me right now. And I wanted it to be something interesting, and I wanted it to be helping people. And so this fits the bill. It's a lot of new information for me, but I'm really excited about it, and I'm happy to meet everybody tonight. Thank you.
All right, and so just to follow up with Kim, so we're gonna have you guys, when you interface with Kim, please copy Roland and Kim in on all emails for that correspondence. In case she's not around, because she can't work for those hours that we might need her, we have Roland, and then Roland can help prioritize those messages as far as the need, so. And again, Kim will let us know if we're getting even close to those hours. Any questions on that? I'll move on to the raise grant. That works. So the raise grant, as you guys know, we won, we were awarded $25 million in federal funds for the raise grant that we had. It took us 3 attempts? 4 attempts. He's giggling because I have a mustache.
I'm really sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, with that comes a lot of process. There's a lot of red tape with federal dollars. So we're kind of sifting through all of that work right now. Part of the scope for the raise grant, though, we put in that application, we talked about electrification. The concept design that you guys are familiar with it has batteries, but it's not fully electric. One of the things that the raise grant wants us to do, and that's what we said we would do, was if there was availability to do it earlier, we would. So right now we are looking at the technology that's out there and can we upgrade our system earlier than waiting for a midlife. So as far as electrification, if we can get to 100% electrification, we will. All that being said, we will have a diesel backup to be able to make longer trips, like down to the shipyard rather than being towed. And I'll give you an example of a tow when I was with State Ferries. Granted, those are a much bigger vessel. To tow it to a shipyard usually cost us and this was 6 years ago now. The last time I towed a boat through the State Ferries, it was $14,000 to tow. So we really want to be able to move our boat. We also want to be able to transit over Bellingham Bay. We know that floods are a thing here in Whatcom County and that they're not going away anytime soon, if ever. And so if it ever flooded to the point where we couldn't land here, or so not here, we couldn't land Lummi Nation, that there is an opportunity for us to make it to Bellingham. So hopefully in Fairhaven, I think we're doing talks with what that would look like. So yeah, that's that 100% concept design, which was fully hybrid, to move to maybe a possible full electric, but with a diesel backup. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And then as far as Roland will be involved, if you guys are looking for more community input on that, just contact him. We can get you some more information as we go through that process.
More community input on electrification?
As far as, I would say, as far as that would work with, as we are bringing in the system itself, as we onboard the new system. what that looks like. So potentially, if we're doing a battery pack to charge, because the charging cable, under the marine cable couldn't supply enough, we're looking at probably a battery bank somewhere. So community input on potentially, what that will look like if there's less parking on island in our parking lot, because we have to take up space.
Got it.
So some of that, as far as the procedures when we're loading and offloading, what that would look like, how we would pause people while we try to charge the vessel itself or unplug it, what that looks like. So there's a lot of things we're still kind of looking through, but the practical operational piece is probably where we'll ask for your input on. So, yeah, okay. So I do have one that was not on here. I want to talk about the March 5th council meeting. For a minute.
Yes.
I'll let you guys know that I will be going to the March 5th council meeting. The reason for that is I know we've talked about, what was it, 16 months ago? We talked about how the expenses have gone up, things have gone up, and we need to do a fair adjustment in order to get back in line at some point. I'm not looking to do it overnight. We know this is going to be a process. That being said, when we talked about the fare box revenue surplus, it will dip below its ability to pay the 55%. So I need to ask for an interfund loan from the council. I am not allowed to just use road fund, but I have to ask for it. So you're going to see me go to the council. If I don't, we don't have money to pay for the service.
So the fare box reserve
Fare box reserve,
is going to drop below zero
that's correct.
in 2024.
Correct.
Wow, but in the last calculations I saw, that might happen at the end of the year.
So two things have come to light. One, our motor vehicle fuel tax is much less. Our ridership is down and expenses are way up. And our ferry deficit funds, we didn't get as much as we thought we were.
Oh, and the very deficit funds from the county, from the state.
From the state
Oh,
are less.
yeah.
So I need to protect service. I need to ensure that we can continue this process that we have committed to, doing the code, then looking at fares. But in the meantime, I need to make sure that the service is running and that we can provide, one, we can pay our employees, two, we can pay for fuel, three, we can get the community on and off the island. That's super essential. So that is what that is all about. It wasn't as part of our plan. I didn't know it was coming up that soon. But when Randy, our financial manager, ended up getting some numbers back, we realized I need to make this ask before we go into the red. I don't want to say, hey, will we let this go into the red and now help us out? I want to be proactive. I want to say,
You have money.
so we have money. We can pay for the service as we continue to follow this process.
And we'll hear more from Randy about that when. he
Absolutely,
comes.
absolutely.
Is that in the March meeting?
Was that what we have?
Yes.
Fran?
Yeah.
So it'll be after the 5th, which is why I thought it was really important that I tell you about it, that I will be at council talking about this.
Got it.
It is not about the code and it is not about the fares. This is, let me keep the service going. So that's what it's about.
Okay.
Feel free to listen in on that one too, if you want. I'm thinking we'll do it either committee of the whole or finance committee, but I'll let you guys know.
Okay, that'd be great, because we would love to do
Yeah, and the three possible options, I just wanted to talk about what those are that I have at my disposal. One, I can cut service. That is not at all feasible at all. And even if I was trying to reduce service, I would lose revenue by doing it. And therefore it's catch-22. So I'm letting you know, no service cuts. The next is raise fares. That would be out of sync with what our commitment is for this process. So we don't have time to do immediate fare raise, and it wouldn't help us anyway. So we'd probably go into the red before the fares would even go and be enacted. So I want you to know that there's not enough time for that. And that's where the only third option I have is, please council, let me do an interfund loan. Okay. And that is what I have for you. And I know that we're going to go through this and then
we are.
we can do some questions. Are you going to do Gary first or you want to jump into
We
it?
are, we're gonna do Gary next. News from the Ferry by Gary Poole of the Mass.
News from the, well, for operations, for this month. We do have a shutdown on the 28th, Wednesday, for dock maintenance. Other than the day-to-day thing, we have nothing new. We do have dry dock coming up. And unfortunately, this is gonna be a little lengthier than we thought it was going to be, due to some circumstances that came up. But also, that being said, we're hopefully gonna be able to take care of some issues and problems for the future. So our next couple of dry docks after this one should be, we're hoping, shorter. We're just trying to take care of everything we can because we don't want to be pulled out of the water. It'll save us a ton of money. If we don't get pulled out, the cost of pulling that boat out of the water every year is, it's amazing how much it's gone up. I mean, it's doubled in the last couple of years. So if we can save the water next year, that'll save us a ton of money too. So basically, our tentative dry dock dates are March 17th, April, excuse me. I know. April 17th to May 18th. A month. We're hoping, you know, we don't have to have that all, but to be safe, that's what we've planned out on. And this is just because we've had some work come up that.
Can you share what things you have to do next?
Well, we had our number one main, if you guys have all noticed, a lot of dock smokes pretty good when we go out. It was rebuilt this year. The mechanics, when they rebuilt it, were hoping the rebuild that gets through. It apparently is not. So we got to pull the number one main, which means cutting a hole in the deck, pulling the engine, replacing it. We do have a long block at the shop, so it's tit for tat. If we had to do all new motors, that would be a tier 3, tier 4 thing, and that would take us probably a 2-month period. So
No, try 4.
or 4 months, because we've told rebuilding engines and stuff. So we're just replacing the engine with yeah. And we already have the blocks, the long blocks ready to go. We just have to pull them out, put them back in, and then line all the shafts and stuff back up. So that's kind of the extent of our work, plus a little bit of steel work under the hull that was found here last year, yeah. So
Okay, thanks.
yeah.
Okay, here. Okay, so, our next.
Hold on, Pam, unmute Pam. And then whoever's next will switch up.
Right. Now we're going to begin our committee work. And at our last meeting, after we received the 3 code potential revisions from the council, from Public Works, we developed an ad hoc committee to take a quick look at those. We just got them 6 days ago, and share with the committee especially and the community a little bit about what those code revisions are saying. So our ad hoc committee was Rich Fry, Diane Harper, and Janice Holmes from the community. And so I believe Diane is going to lead off.
Hello, back again on code, and I'm going to do a little brief intro, and oops, that seems to, there we go. And then we're going to actually go over what the ad hoc committee has been able to do in the 6 days. And then we are going to talk about how you can contribute, and people who are interested in this can participate in the next 2 weeks when the ad hoc committee is going to be working to get past this very, very drafty preliminary look.
Sure, but she sounds good on Zoom.
How about this microphone? Does it just need to be aimed at me more? Is that better, Pam? Can you hear me?
It's not on.
Oh, it's not.
Here you go. How about now?
How about that?
A little closer.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, you can hear me now? Okay, great. All right. Well, I want to again say at the end of Janice's and my presentation, we're going to talk about how you can participate. And so a lot of this may look incredibly complicated and complex. We're going to try and hurry through it for tonight, but just know that we have 2 weeks of working further on it ahead of us. In Washington State, ferry systems are roads and bridges. Those of you who were here last time heard us talk about this before. It turns out ferries are very expensive road. And
Are you sharing?
I thought I was.
No.
Oops.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Remember, we gave them back to Zoom
Okay.
and then hit share. And then choose your share.
Now share.
No.
Yeah, it's I'll put it up in a second.
Okay. You'll put.
Right.
You know, it'll be so nice when we have this down to a routine every time. It's been complicated. Okay, so starting again. Janice Holmes is a former Lummi Island Workgroup member, an island resident business owner, and a retired attorney. I was a member of the 2011 Lummi Island Ferry Citizens Task Force, where I had to learn a lot about ferry finances. And I also worked for Whatcom County for 9 years, and so I used to take ordinances and plans to the council. Old Home Week. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a real brief review. We're going to talk a little bit about the process. Then we're going to spend as much time as we can being as hurried as we can to give you kind of an overview of what we've looked at the past 6 days. And then finally, we're going to have an opportunity for everyone to participate, and we will talk about that. Washington State ferry systems are roads and bridges. The county has been on the hook now for 100 years in providing Lummi Island ferry service. Before that, it was private. And we want some sort of celebration, but we haven't figured that out yet. It's a very expensive part of the county as far as the road fund supporting it. And also it's only about 6% of the total public works budget, because Liz has to deal with things like floods and all sorts of other issues besides roads. So we appreciate her being here tonight. How much does it cost? I want to remind you, we're very aware that the unincorporated area of Whatcom County resident property owner pays portion of the ferry. And we just worked up some numbers with Randy's help. If you had a $500,000 property in Whatcom County in 2022, you would pay $37 a year. I want to contrast that with if you're a commuter from Lummi Island, you probably pay close to $2,300 a year. And if you want to build a carport or something, you'll pay $600 for a load of concrete. So the unincorporated area, I think, is unfairly hit, since most of our business goes to inside cities. And that's a whole different topic that we need to get into. And that is how to spread the costs out from the unincorporated area to the entire county. The next thing that we've looked at before is, yes, the fares more than met the required 55%. But we've run into 2 real problems in recent years, and one of them is we had a $358,000 loss of revenue during COVID, and also we had an $800,000 dolphin expense that came along, and those are those 2 errors. I want to pause here for a moment and say, in the 2011 committee, that committee came up with several recommendations for changes to chapter 10.34. And the public works director at that time did not want to undertake any kind of changes. And I want to congratulate you guys because you've been willing to step up to the plate and say, yes, it's complicated and controversial, but we're actually going to go in and try and improve the code. And I'm going to dig out some of that 2011 stuff and see if I can sneak it in this time. Our responsibility as a committee, review and make recommendations on proposed changes to chapter 10.34. We're also going to be making recommendations on fares and on the new boat and everything else, but right now we're focused on the code. Timeline and proposed process. We got the drafts, 3 of them, on February 1st. We're making our very drafty preliminary report tonight. We're going to spend 2 weeks working on it. Now, right now, the tentative schedule is that when we come back together as a committee on February 22nd, we'll ask you to adopt something, and then it will go to council. That, of course, is subject to a lot of different things. I want to just do a summary from my background. When you do code amendments, you generally have 2 tests. One is, does the proposed code amendment increase consistency, replace outdated or ineffective regulations, improve clarity, or make implementation easier? We call those housekeeping amendments, and there's a bunch of them in this code, and they're done pretty well. But we found some others that we'd like to suggest that you make. And we found a few of yours that we'd like to suggest you change. But we really appreciate the fact that somebody went through the code and found all those and didn't just focus on a couple of main areas, because this code started in 2006 and things have changed. The second test, does the proposed code amendment implement a change in policy that increases community well-being and the long-term viability of the enterprise or system? Well, we have arguments with you on that. And the question that we all need to answer is how to make sure that the ferry continues to have enough money to operate and to have the kind of service that we have. We have a wonderful service compared to Guaymas Island and some of the other ferries. On the other hand, one of the things that changes in policy that are proposed in the drafts that we got from Public Works would do is significantly change the kinds of things that fares are expected to pay. And so we're going to get into that a bit tonight. And then we have those areas of policy where in particular over the next few weeks, we expect to hear from the community. I once heard Lummi Island described as an argument surrounded by water. And so this has been an argumentative topic now for months, and this is our chance to finally, and us as a committee, come to some sort of agreement on the best way to resolve it, and then make that recommendation to the council. Now, Janice is going to go over the difficult part, and then I'll come back and do the good stuff. And just hit the yellow button.
So we were provided 3 different versions from Public Works a week ago of proposed code changes. And in 1 week, we've been able to pull together some comments, but tonight is the first night that the advisory committee can talk amongst themselves. Given the valid requirements of Open Public Meetings Act, they can't talk outside of the public meeting. And this needs a lot of discussion. And 1 week is not enough to pull together all the threads and follow that with a discussion amongst the committee members and the public. We have to give the public an opportunity to weigh in on these changes. At the last Ferry Advisory Committee, the timeline given to us was that we would be receiving these last week, which we did, and that Public Works was going forward to submit these to council in March. And I would suggest to you that's simply not enough time. That's not enough time to get public input. It's not enough time for the advisory committee to have the discussion that needs to happen amongst themselves, that has to happen with notice to the public and public participation. And if that timeline, if we hold to that, we're going to end up with the same kind of debacle that occurred last summer, where people are very upset because they haven't had time to weigh in on these issues. There's really important issues here. And I agree with Diane. It's great that we're not amending it piecemeal. It needs to be looked at as a whole so that things are consistent internally and with other requirements in the county codes. And that's really important, and that takes time. And so I think more time is necessary to pull all these together so that we have a really good product that will stand the test of time for the next 20 years. I think that's really important. The other problem was and this is important going forward, and this is kind of an outline of how to look at proposed code changes. And standard code revision format, the words that are being changed are struck through, where the added words are underlined. We've tried to highlight where there's also new text that's proposed by Public Works, and in a different color where it's proposed text by what we think is either an issue or needs further exploration. But the codes provided to us didn't follow the standard strike through and underline format. And in fact, some language was included and underlined as if it were new text when it currently exists in the existing code. And that just goes to how complex this is. And that's why it takes time to go through all the revisions and make sure that what we have is correct. And we don't end up missing that children between the age of 12 and 19 ride the ferry for free, but children under 12, well, there's no provision for them riding for free. These are the types of things that we need to catch and make sure are corrected. But the overall difficult issues are the policy decisions, and the policy decision of what should be included in total operating expenses and what should be included for the adjusted total operating expenses for which fares pay 55%. This is similar to the graph that we showed at the last meeting. This is a scatter graph that shows the typical cost of repairs and maintenance over the last, I don't remember what, 10 years. And you can see they're all clustered at the bottom, except for a few dots that are well in excess. And those are the dolphin charges over a 2-year period that dramatically increased operation costs for the years of 2022 and 23. And so again, this is a policy decision to how to address extraordinary or emergency costs and how much of those costs should the fare box cover. And I think this demonstrates with real clarity that the average regular and routine, as the code now requires, all cluster down on the bottom of the graph. But
Janice?
Yeah.
I can't read the far left column. Can you tell me what that says?
I'm sorry, the which column?
Far left.
That's the dollar amount.
Okay.
And so I know it's not as easy to see, but again, we did this kind of last minute. So
Oh, no, I'm not
yeah.
criticizing. I just can't see it.
As we would hope. So the question that happens when you see this is, how should extraordinary expenses be handled? And particularly the proposed language from Public Works creates a new category of expenses, but categorizes them as emergency. And yeah, I know, but I didn't want to do that. And so this is the new category of expenses that's been proposed for non-capital extraordinary. We say extraordinary. Public Works has proposed emergency, but not all extraordinary expenses are done on an emergency basis. In fact, they may require planning and take place over a few years. And so we think extraordinary expenses is perhaps a better descriptive of the category to capture those expenses. And part of the reason is that the reality is we're nursing along this ferry system right now, the docks and the ferry, until we can make the larger capital expenditure of replacing both, hopefully in the near future. And so as a result, we're going to have to be putting a lot of money in to try to manage the aging system. So let's see, I want to go, okay, so that's where I was. So then the one I skipped here again is now consistently the ferry fares have not been required to cover capital costs. And this is just an outline of what's included in the capital expenditures. Though I would note something that occurred to me late this afternoon that perhaps needs more discussion, and I could be misinterpreting it, that this capital cost includes, a definition includes depreciation expenses, and that this is capital, which is not covered by ferry fares. However, the ferry belongs to the ER&R fund, and the state mandates that the rental rate for an item in an ER&R fund includes depreciation. So if in fact depreciation is included in the rental rate of the ER&R fund, yet it's excluded here as part of the ferry fare, that creates a tension between two different requirements for the county to comply with. And that needs just, I don't know what's right, I don't know what's wrong, but it needs further discussion to make sure that it's handled correctly. Additionally, in this section is a new section concerning lease payments for the Tidelands lease with Illumination. And the section includes language that basically says we're going to ignore the governmental accounting standards which require a lease such as this to be capital. And we're just going to ignore that, and we're going to include that as part of the operations and maintenance expense that the fares pay. And so it would seem that there should be some consistency if we're going to ignore the governmental accounting standards for the lease payments at the rate of $200,000 a year since 2010, but we're going to say we have to include the dolphins as an operation and maintenance expense because the government accounting standards require it. So it seems to me you don't get to pick and choose which standards you're going to comply with. And again, this needs more discussion. And additionally, inserting the language for these lease payments does not cure or address the violation of the county charter that says any such lease is a capital expense. And I have a full analysis of that I'll hand out afterwards tonight that was provided to Public Works last year, and there was no response concerning that issue. Let's see, so now I'm lost at which slide I'm on. One more.
This one total operating.
Oh, this is the new, the category of extraordinary expenses. And again, titled as emergency, I think a better categorization is extraordinary. Because they're not all accomplished on an emergency example basis. And the next one. Yeah, I think I lost where I was in the, are these numbered? Go back.
One more.
That was 15.
Oh, that's what I was trying. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little confused here. Yeah, this was how should this be categorized on these extraordinary expenses? And again, if we want to look at the dolphins that were charged out over 2 years, as opposed to just 1 year, or maybe over 3 years, how should these be charged towards maintenance? And is it a dollar amount? Is it a percentage of the amount of the item that's being replaced? Is it how often it has to happen? These need further definition in costing these out and as to what they should be. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's not as clear as it should be, but hopefully when we have a chance to get into more discussion, it will become more clear at that time. Let's see, and I didn't. And this is the one, again, for these extraordinary expenses right now, it's included that up to $150,000 in a calendar year of these expenses would be paid by the road fund essentially. And then anything, but what's not clear here is that, so anything over that would then be the responsibility of the fare box rate to cover all that cost. And again, that depends on how these are charged. And so let's take an example. If the Dolphins were charged in 1 year at $800,000, that would leave 440,000 of that would be the fare box share minus the 150,000 contribution from Public Works, still leaving 290,000 that has to be covered by fare box revenue. And so it seems to me that it's better to cap the amount that the fare box would be required to cover versus how much the contribution would be. And how is it, so if it's only charged out over 3 years, so it's only 100,000 a year, does that mean then there would be no additional road fund contribution to cover that extraordinary cost? So this is a good start, and I think it's an acknowledgement that we want to keep fare stable, that we have an aging system that's going to require a tremendous amount of massaging to keep going for the next few years. But again, we just need more discussion to make sure that this works. And plus, by including a specific dollar amount, where are we going to be in 10 years? Is that still a realistic dollar amount? Does this need an escalation clause in it? Should it be a percentage instead? And again, like I say, this is a good first step, but let's think it through so that this is good 10 years from now as well. I think so.
Oh, okay. My turn.
I'm afraid I was not done with as much clarity as I would like, but.
Okay, so I need to check the time, which isn't on my screen. How many more minutes do we have?
7 o'clock right now. You're doing well.
So how many minutes do I have? And then that tells me how fast I have to go.
Well,
Open session.
A little over time, you know, we like to let Director Costa want more time.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna zoom through these. There are 2 documents that will be at the library and that will also be posted online that you can download and get a lot of these details. And I don't know how to do this exactly on Zoom. I can wave them to the group. One of them is a 3-column thing that you need to really print on 14-inch. There'll be another version of it that cuts off the left-hand most column, and you can just look at those. And what this does is it takes the existing code on the left. The middle column is the Public Works proposal, version 3. And the right hand is a lot of details about what the ad hoc code committee thinks should change. So if you just want to find out kind of an overview, you don't really want to get into the detailed code language, grab this and just read the right-hand column. Because the committee does, but not everyone. That's why I'm saying it's available, will be available online. Yes, yes, yes. It'll be available online and at the Island Library. The other document that is available is where we took Public Works actual code text and we went through and we marked it up royally. We added a lot of blue to their red, and that is extremely much a draft. It's what we talked about in just a few days. It's a starting point. So I'm going to just highlight a couple of these issues. Ferry user fees, because the council wanted permission to be able to add, make up the 358,000 from ARPA funds. What is being proposed is a whole new term, fare box considered revenue. And every time I ran into it in all 6 places in the code, I had to go look up the definition again. And so we're suggesting that you don't add a whole new term that isn't self-evident, that instead you include a phrase in the existing one simply saying, plus all other funds designated by resolution of the Whatcom County Council. That's one. Another one, and this one we want crew input on, Gary. This is something that came out from our discussions on the ferry with crew as we loaded and unloaded. And that is it reasonable to ask the crew to charge 50% for vehicles that occupy more than 1 lane? And the issue, of course, is it all depends upon how that vehicle is loaded in many cases. And so then the argument is, well, you know, if you'd had me do this, that, or the other, I wouldn't be over the lane. So we wonder if that maybe should be taken out, because it's foolish to have something in code that is ignored simply because it's impossible to really implement. The second part of that, though, is that RV vans are now charged as RVs. So a Sprinter van that is an RV has one charge. A passenger Sprinter van has another charge. And the question is, what happens to the commercial van that has plumbing supplies or window coverings? There is no commercial gross vehicle weight painted on the door. Does that get charged as a passenger van? It's not an RV.
It's all a Sprinter.
So what? Yeah. So here's your chance. We've written something here, and we would really appreciate it if the crew would advise us as to whether or not this is the right direction to go. The next one is let me just let everyone know. No one pays when they're leaving the island. No one. It doesn't matter if you're dead or you're alive. You do not pay leaving the island. Okay? So I'm not quite sure where this came from. Yes.
Okay. This is after hours of the period are shut down. So if someone dies or passes away, they literally have to sit with the person, let's say the person passes away on the front porch, they have to wait until the morning to take their loved one off the island. If they choose to call out the ferry crew, as of right now, they have to pay what, $500? $600 so that they can take their deceased loved one off the island after hours. This is an after hours thing.
Okay.
So you don't have to pay, you don't have to pay for your loved one who you're grieving about.
Yes.
That's where this came up.
All right. So it just needs, it just needs a little rewording, because we could think of one instance where it would definitely benefit an island business owner. And we thought, why is he getting special treatment? But that clarifies it. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. So finally, there's this whole last section about the use of ferry user fee revenues, and we talked about this last time. It doesn't really set any limits, so it's pretty hard to implement. And that is, you raise ferry fares when there's a deficit. Well, did you raise them right after the 358,000 dip? Do you wait until it's 3 or 4 years that you've been deficit in a row? And then what do you do with the surplus? We ran a surplus for 10 years. I mean, thankfully, it's getting us through this, but you know, you can't just leave these things going on out there forever. You need to have some sort of limits. And we also think that whole section in the existing code is a real mess. And so we appreciate your efforts to rewrite it and reword it. And we would like to take a crack at that to try and make it more understandable to someone who's reading it. And so we will attempt to do that. So copies of code and comments for you to use are available. I've waved them around. Everyone is invited to send written comments to the Whatcom County Ferry Advisory Committee email address that is on the county website. And that goes to every one of us. The only thing is we can't talk about it. we cannot talk about it with each other unless we're in a public meeting. So when you send that, do not be upset if you don't get back a bunch of replies because it's a one-way shot. Everyone is also invited to contact Rich or Janice or I. Janice is not a committee member, but she is an incredible volunteer. And so the next thing is though, I just threw up some images of the things I waved around in the air, the written materials. The ad hoc code committee, in addition to the other work we're doing, is going to have a formal work session at 6 p.m. in the Island Library on February 15th. Now, we would like to give the committee members a chance to talk and discuss and ask questions, which they can't do outside of a public meeting. So if we have 5 committee members who want to sit and discuss, we will schedule a public meeting and it will appear on the county website and we will take minutes and do all of the formal stuff. So by Monday, we need every county ferry committee member to announce whether or not they wish to attend and discuss amongst ourselves these issues. If you don't want to attend and we only have 4, we still are going to have the meeting. And in either case, the public is invited and we're interested in getting public input. But we have to know how many ferry committees are going to attend to know whether or not we have to schedule a formal meeting, a special meeting. And now on to questions and comments. And I think Liz Cosa is the first one up.
Yeah.
All right, I kind of put my notes between like 3 different pieces of paper here. All right, so you guys asked for more time. What would be really helpful is that's an indefinite ask. Do you have a plan for that? As you know, I'm going to be going on March 5th to say that the ferry user fees won't be able to pay that 55%. I need to do an interfund loan. As you know, we're under pressure for that. And I need to know what that loan number looks like so that I can plan out for this whole process. What I would look for you guys, possibly from the advisory committee, is put a letter to myself and to Executive Sadhu on how much more you would like to delay based off of our plan already.
Gotcha.
That would be very, very helpful.
Gotcha.
I asked for you to have some sense of urgency, as you know, because I don't want this just interfund loan to, once I do a loan, I can't keep going back for more loans on top of loans. So just keep that in mind. So it would be, if you guys could do some kind of request to, again, to myself and Executive Sadhu, that would be great. Emergency versus extraordinary, just comments. I'm just going to just freely talk about comments on that. So the emergency thought was both of those those 2 items, they were emergencies. They had to be, because doing I'll use an example for adult, any in-water work or any work in a watershed or anything that has to do with water or eelgrass, which is basically everything that has to do with the ferry, requires extensive permits. So in order to keep the system going, I have to declare an emergency. So every dolphin repair that you guys have, that we experience, not just you, we experience as a whole, I wrote a declaration of emergency. And so that seemed like a catalyst for these extraordinary, or as we call emergency repairs. Because there's no way, it would take us years to fix a dolphin. And if it took years to fix a dolphin, I would have to park the boat while we fixed it, while we waited to fix. So that's why we use the word emergency.
And you may want to mention that goes for other bridges and everything too.
Sure.
Throughout the county.
So
Right.
does emergency expedite the permit? process
Absolutely.
to do the work?
It absolutely does. It also alleviates some purchasing policy as well.
Yeah.
So, and we do that because we don't have the luxury with the ferry system to just put everything on hold. If I put everything on hold, we would stop operation. Again, I think we've already talked about that earlier in this meeting, where that's not an option. We have life-saving, this is the lifeline to the community. All right. the Tideland lease. Question. So we kept the language the way, that language changed the accounting practices, or I should say the accounting terms changed in 2022. So it's a very recent change where it didn't list as capital. We would be looking to council to make that decision. We didn't propose it here. We proposed what our past practice has been. So I heard your feedback on it, understand the position there. So thank you for that information. Let's see. Heard your information on farebox considered revenue, that a lot of the terms are very closely with a lot of same words, a lot of acronyms here can get confusing. But you nailed it. You were right on it, that the whole point of that language is to allow, right now, the only thing that can go into the farebox revenue is farebox. We can't, there's no other mechanism without county council approval to put more into that piece that pays the 55%. So that was our stab at it. I will work with folks to see if the way you proposed is a better way. So thanks for looking at that. Let's see. I think we talked about non-capital emergency repairs. I don't know, we didn't entertain if it could be paid back over 3 years. So that's something, appreciate the feedback. We'll look into whether or not if that fixed number can be used over several years. Right now, when we pay the bills, we pay it as one, but essentially you're asking for it to be moved out over a time period such that you could gain the benefit of the non-emergency, or I should say the non-capital emergency type work.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
The 150,000 that was postulated as a possible way to alleviate some of
The fluctuation.
expenses,
Mhm.
would that be a yearly amount that you would put in every year, even if there wasn't an emergency expense, so it would build up to be used? Or would it just be 150,000 if there was an emergency expense?
On a budgeting standpoint, we would budget 150 as a line item, but we would not have it grow as this pot. We weren't proposing a pot to grow
Got it.
from,
Not
but
prohibitive.
if there were expenses up to 150, we would have the budget to do that.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
So it's more for our line item when we're doing our annual budget.
Got it, okay.
So, but I heard your thoughts on it, so I'll take that back. Gary, you'll look at the van language.
Yeah, that van language and everything. So generalizing vehicle fares and how to categorize them has always been difficult because every vehicle is a little different. And if I categorize, let's use the Sprinter vans. I've got one as a camper, and we have motorhomes in our fare schedule. Well, that motorhomes or that Sprinter van's got a little toilet in it. Is that a motorhome now? But yet the Sprinter van has all the supplies the same size, but it doesn't have a toilet in it. You know, so we have to figure out how we can categorize those vehicles better, so it makes it easier. Our purchasers, we try to have meetings about every quarter, and every time we have a meeting, those things come up. You know, everybody asks the same question: how am I supposed to charge this one and this one at the same time? So, you know, we got to find some language in there to make it all the same.
Yeah,
You know, and if we
you could work on that, that'd be super helpful.
Just a general about fares and as far as the different types of fares. I believe when I was working for the state, we were looking at fares, and Alaska State Ferry came up and their system, and they had some combination of, I want to say it was 15,000 different combinations that could be done with the type of fares, whether they were, you know, a youth fare on a commercial vehicle that's, this many feet. All I'm saying is that we have pursers that are manually doing it when we're making suggestions, both to the public. We want to make sure that the fare users, it's clear to them they know what to budget for when they're coming on our vessel. We also make it easy for our pursers to actually be able to expense it. So just keep that in mind. It also is really important to keep those fares as simplified as possible, because when we go to automated ticketing, it'll be really easy. It won't be something very difficult. So just keep that in mind. Let's not do the model of Alaska State Ferries where there's that many combinations of fares that can get really confusing. But yeah, thanks, Gary, for having your folks look at that. That will be great. Thank you for the thoughts on the deceased. I think we probably could say after hours, something to that. There was nothing nefarious in that. Someone passed away and they had to sit with their loved one all night long. And that just seems, that would be awful. So,
Yes.
and I think we care about our residents here. So that's why that language went in. There was nothing I don't even know how this would benefit somebody, but you guys are savvier than I am. So yeah, we could put something in there about after hours. See what I'll put down. I think that's all I had. Just trying to listen and also write notes at the same time. So,
May I add something to it?
yeah, go ahead, Roland.
One thing also with regard to the uplands and tidelands lease, besides the yearly rental fee that you pay, the lease fee, there's also 2 million in year 1, 2 million at year 5, 2 million plus at year 15, which unbelievably year 15 is only a couple of years from now. And so there's $6+ million that does come out of the road fund directly. So just to let you know, all those funds, plus the improvements that we had to do, roadway improvements, all were capital expense, just to let you know.
All right, so that's all I have for now. I really do appreciate all the work and how you guys have been really dedicated to really jump in on this quickly. We did our best to get you options by the 1st, like we talked about. So
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
And we appreciate that as well. Okay, we've reached the point now. Yes. No, we're gonna have a bunch of questions. I think. No, now. No, but yeah, so
These are quickies.
yeah. So Rich,
So the first one is.
okay.
Who was, are you muted now? Okay.
Yeah.
Just be you.
You're good. Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, so is this working?
Yes, sounds great.
So the first question is, the last time that this committee submitted a suggestion about having a summer surcharge, my understanding is that Public Works didn't want to get into that.
You want me to answer?
Well, I'm just wondering if given the circumstances that we're in now, from an economic standpoint, that's really the low-hanging fruit, and most ferries do it. And so that could be implemented fairly quickly. So would that be something worth talking about?
I can tell you that we're not against it, and
Oh,
there is
okay.
administrative, we have to print all new tickets or tickets for that.
Oh, is there some big expense, hidden expense?
It's not a hidden expense, it's an administrative burden. And to train our folks and to get and get that up to speed. And then in the system, as far as how we gather them, it's all administrative. I just don't know that we can do it in time for this summer. That's all.
Okay, that's helpful.
Plus, we have to word it appropriately because we take money from the, not the motor fuel, the other one, the deficits. There's some specifics as far as what we can and can't do as far as seasonal, surcharges and things like that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, you're right. We wouldn't want to jeopardize those funds by, the deficit fund is based on how bad your deficit is and you get more money. So
Right.
if we mess that up in any way, we could potentially hurt ourselves more than they help, but it's definitely worth something looking at.
Okay.
So,
And the other question about the parking space, about the charges in the parking space, the deck space. My fantasy is that ideally what we're talking about is what fare should a vehicle take based upon how many vehicle equivalent spaces it takes up. Is that kind of, I mean, it isn't necessarily what kind of vehicle it is. It's really about how much space it takes up.
How big is it?
And or whether how much more it costs, for example, if it has more if it's heavier.
Sure.
So simple answer to that?
I don't know that I, go ahead.
Is that more or less what's behind
Right,
it?
we've actually explored that thought, Reg.
Yeah.
And the hard part about it is figuring out how to make the sizes on the boat safe. So when I come up in December and it's blowing 40 miles an hour out, and I can judge how big your car is so I can charge you appropriately, and how to make those spaces so that we charge you the same every time. Yeah, we've talked about that space, 20 cars, we only got 16 on there, why, or whatever, and how to make that work. And we have no set way of doing it, because depending on how you drive on good, Catherine drives on bad, she takes up a little bit more space, you can't park appropriately, so now right, and I have nothing there to judge how long you are. We have to make it usable for our crew.
I can. Yeah. I can speak to why it works for the state. So when the state actually has, when you're paying, you're going through a toll booth. Yeah. And the toll booth itself actually has marks. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but it's got marks painted on the pavement. And it actually, the person who's taking essentially the purser, the terminal person that's doing the toll booth, they can look on the ground and physically see that the vehicle has extended past the line, and they know automatically to pay them to charge more. And what Gary is saying is that because we don't have a toll booth, we don't have a place where we can look at each vehicle independently. You're trying to make a judgment call without being able, I mean, you know how tight it is. It's not like they can even take a tape measure and measure it. But that's why it works for the state. I don't see a real easy way to do that for our folks. Maybe in the future with the new boat, because we have the straight up, but right now, in some cases, you would have a trailer. It's actually bent around the house. So now you're trying to, Yeah.
I did want to mention that question came up when we were doing the level of service, if you recall, 7 years ago. And Mike Anderson talked about with the new boat, being able to drive straight on, there's more options on being able to do that and not have a toll booth, but still have the purser be able to do it based on length and obvious weight issues, which are very difficult to do now.
So we could entertain questions from the room. Right. You should go by the rules. Oh, right.
Is this the open session or are we still in code?
I believe we're still in code. I got the open session list, but I haven't started open session yet. But we will entertain questions on the code from Zoom as well as the room. But we're going to start with Ralph from the room, and then we'll go to the Zoom questions.
There's only one right now so far.
There's only one. Okay,
Yeah.
so Ralph, does Ralph need a microphone?
Well, he just needs to be by either your computer if you want, or we can turn on like this computer, but it just needs to be by one
Can
computer.
you use that one on the, why can't he use Diane's?
I can do it. So I'm not sure whether you're right. I could post that and see this.
Oh, no.
Is this now working? If so, he can use this. Is this working?
It is.
Okay, so Ralph just talking to the iPad. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
testing the iPad. Hear me?
Yep.
First of all, Director Cosa, I'm shocked to hear you've got to go out for a loan. Randy stood at the Grange in March of 2023, 11 months ago, and said there was $2 million in the ferry fund, $3 million that the road fund had over contributed, and $1 million deficit ferry fares. So that $2 million was in the bank on December 31st, 2022, and we've got a deficit this year of 770,000. That leaves 1.3 million.
We can't really hear.
Sorry.
Yeah.
On the microphone.
You can't hear, oh, yeah. we can do-
You need to get the microphone back.
I want to make sure that we're talking to apples with that question. So the ferry fund has two forms of monies in it, essentially. It's got the revenue from the fare box, and it also has prepaid road fund dollars for that contribution of the 45%. The 55% is the piece that we're talking about that will not be able to pay its share. That's the piece we need the interfund loan for.
So you can't take it out of the road fund contribution.
I cannot. That is for road fund only. That's where
The ferry fund balance is currently 1.3 million, approximately.
I can tell you that the 55% in there, the fare box recovery piece, doesn't have enough to pay its share. The fund itself has prepaid road fund in it, but it can only be used for the 45% contribution. So the fund itself, imagine having a bank account where it has two savings accounts in it.
Yeah.
The total amount is the 1 point whatever, so that's in the positive, but one of the savings accounts is in the negative. And that's the one I need to make sure that we can cover that 55% share. Does that make sense?
So what was the intention to do with the $3 million that was the 1.5 original contribution if it never goes?
The 1 point,
45.
are you talking about the Mompson letter
No.
adjustment?
No.
Are you talking to the microphone?
Sure. I think we should close it off and we'll talk to Randy. But
Okay, sounds
I'm
good.
absolutely shocked that Randy can say that you can't use those funds temporarily for ferry operations. They sit in the ferry fund. If there's no other use for them if you 45, 55 net. There's no other use for those funds unless you've taken them out, which Randy said he would do. He would take the last $1 million out. So other comment is that for 9 months, we've been raising issues, some having an impact of $250,000, some having an impact of $500,000. The capital lease could potentially have an impact of 2.3 million, favorable to the ferry users, or the total operating costs, and 55% favorable to the users. None of those have been documented and resolved today. So we have multi-million-dollar issues outstanding, and yet we're talking about borrowing money, and we don't have a comprehensive response from the county on those issues. So I just, maybe Randy and I should sit down and talk. I'm not sure, but
I can say as far as I don't quite understand your question.
okay.
What I would suggest, and I see I've kind of perused some of these questions. What I would ask is that, and I want to make sure that you guys know that the respect that I have for this committee is that, and I did this with the last committee as well. Please put all of your questions to your committee and then have the committee vet them to come to us. We want to make sure that we are honoring the process. So thank you for these, but I want to make sure that before we're answering any, that this committee wants us to put that time and effort into those. Okay, that's all I would ask.
I just have 2.5 minutes, and I'll just review some of the questions, put them on the floor without requesting answers.
It's
Unless you
your
want to
comment
on
period,
them.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, you send the questions round to the committee, we'll put the list together.
Okay, 2.5 minutes. My first question was, I guess, does the county respect the definition of operating costs in the current code? So the operating costs, we've all heard, an actual daily running, actual repair, routine maintenance. And I guess my question was, when you confirm that your view currently is that the Dolphins, 400,000 emergency, extraordinary, happens every 20 or 30 years, fit that definition? And I think the answer is yes, you still believe it fits that definition. Forget capital definitions, forget operating definitions. Does it fit the definition in the code as it currently stands? And I assume that your answer is yes. It is a regular routine operating cost.
Yes.
It's every. Yeah. Okay. And my other question was, which is important, but it sounds sort of technical in accounting, is if there are deductions from two parties, 45% road fund, 55%, and if there are certain deductions, two state funds plus other things, that do you need revenue, cash revenue sources before you have those deductions to make everything work? Yeah. And that's a $2.3 million question that.
Which one was that on the list?
Number 2. Yes. Huge change in what the road fund contributed, effective, I don't know when, going 45% of net. It was always 45% growth for 17 years. And that's why the road fund contribution went up to 3 million, 1.5 plus 1.5 over 17 years. And the state auditor may think that's consistent, but it's totally inconsistent. And there's been no explanation. As Randy said, it will now do the calculation 45% of net, which costs the road fund $2.3 million for cash. Should have been funded. Tidelands lease, is it different than the uplands lease or the Govt lease? Okay. And the question is, I guess if there are huge items outstanding, and I suggest there are, that those should be resolved before we talk about their increase.
Thank you, Rob. Michael, do you have a-
Yeah, I've got an order of Bob Anderson has been first queued up to ask a question, so I'm gonna.
Am I ready to go? Are you ready for me to speak, Pam?
Hold on.
Oh,
Bob, can you try talking?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, ready to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, I'll try to be brief. I know you're trying to get a lot done here. First of all, I want to support the request, and it sounds like Public Works is receptive to it, for an extension of time. If nothing else, I think we're learning from this conversation tonight that this committee needs more time. And let's remember that 6 of the 8 Ferry Advisory Committee members are new to the committee. Now, they're not all new to ferry issues, so many of them are experienced in it, but I'm actually glad to see also Council Member John Scanlon here. John, you're new to the council, and thankfully you're here learning tonight, but there's a lot of learning to do. These are complicated and some big policy questions. So I urge everybody to make this request for an extension so that the committee can do 2 things. One, the full committee can learn the issues, can deliberate over them, and can feel confident when it comes to voting time that they know enough to actually make a vote on a recommendation. And secondly, that they have the opportunity again to engage with Public Works. This has been a really good exchange tonight. Director Kosa, I'm really glad you're there, and there's a lot of good direct communication, but there needs to be more of that along the way here. And then finally, for the input to come from the community. One of the raps on the prior committee, LIFAC, was we didn't have enough community input. Well, if we're going to do that and do it well, we really need to give this advisory committee the time. So I think I'm urging you to look into March, sometime in March, for you to come to a point where you can make recommendations. And my final comment is, I was your opening comment, Director Kosa, about needing to go for an interloan transfer, and we're the fund is in such dire straits. You know, there are two big issues, in addition to the contributions for the motor vehicle fuel tax and the ferry fund from the state, as well as the drop apparently in utilization. But it's the COVID, the 358 from COVID, and I hope that there's a strong support for ARPA funds to be allocated for that purpose. And then secondly, let's not dodge around it. The elephant in this room that we're all looking at is those dolphins at $800,000. And I know there've been some healthy conversation about it, but those two issues have put that fund where it is right now. You wouldn't have to go for an interfund loan if the ferry fund hadn't been hit by that amount. Thanks for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Bob.
Do you want me to make a comment?
Yeah, would you look at?
I can make, if you want me to go one by one.
No, that'd be great.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, with regards to ARPA, you probably weren't in copy to the email that I actually sent when I sent the proposal, the different options over to the committee. But the executive is in support of the lost fare revenue during COVID. Ultimately, that is a council decision. But as far as both Public Works and the executive's office, we're in support of it. So that hasn't changed, and that was put in writing to you with the email.
Is he gonna make that request to the county council or?
Will Paul make the request for the ARPA funding to the county council, or will you request that?
It would come as a request through the executive as part of the budget. But it would not come from me specifically, or I should say Public Works. It would.
When would that happen?
I am not sure. I can find that answer out. Okay.
Would it be a request for just the 358,000? I guess I wasn't understanding. If in addition to that, it would be the dolphins, because that total would be closer to 700 or 800,000.
At this time, I don't have that answer, but I can ask it.
And the fee, we have we still have some community members.
Yeah, it was Peter Earl was next, and then we got Charles
Okay,
Bailey.
Peter, you're next.
Yes, hi, can you hear me? Is my voice coming through there? Can you hear me?
I can.
How about
Julie can. Can the committee hear me? Can Liz Cosa and the members of WCFAC, can they hear me?
Oh, he can.
I'm not getting any response from any of the WCFAC members.
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay, good. Okay, I have a question for Liz Cosa. Liz, as you know, this issue of the dolphins, as Bob called it, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, has been a very contentious issue, and this island has been very, very unified in resisting the inclusion of those $800,000 into the fare box on the grounds that the ordinance, as currently worded, restricts operating costs to only regular and routine. You saw the chart earlier this morning. You've heard the arguments we've been making for over a year now. So the question, and I listened to your comments earlier, and you said you're borrowing money from the road fund to cover deficits that you see in the fare box. So the question I have for you, Liz, it's basically a yes or no question. Are you now charging us for those $800,000 in the fare box, despite the wording regular and routine in the ordinance?
As far as the 800,000, you realize that is not 800,000.
55% of it, I mean.
Right? I just want to make sure you're aware that.
Yeah, I'm aware, 55%.
Yes, we're talking about the split. I would not say I'm targeting anything, or Public Works is not targeting anything. That is just our understanding and our interpretation of the code. It is ultimately what we kind of fundamentally have, hit that crossroads with. But as far as the $800,000, those two repairs in totality, yes, we are treating them as a maintenance item.
A regular.
Regular routine, because they're
This is
not capital.
despite the questions from, this is
It's not a
despite,
capital repair. And so the language, which is why we added some language about these non-capital emergency repairs. The reason we added that language is because that part of it's silent. It actually doesn't even talk about it at all, but they're definitely not capital. So yes,
yeah,
by
but they're
default,
also,
we would
Liz,
be
I think a
making it
number of the council
regular and
members,
routine.
Liz, can you hear me?
Hope that answers your question.
No, not quite. I have a follow-up then. As you know, a number of the council members, Todd Donovan, and other council members have asked questions about whether or not those dolphin charges ought to be considered regular and routine. I understand the dichotomy between regular and routine and capital, the way the kind of binary choice is set up by the ordinance as it's worded right now. But those expenses were incurred under the ordinance as it's currently worded. And while you say it's not capital and the state auditor agrees with you that it's not capital, any lawyer will tell you it's not regular and routine either. And therefore it can't go into the fare box because only regular and routine can go into the fare box. So I guess my question, and you've heard that view from us over and over and over and over again. But I guess my question is, I just want to understand, and I think WCFAC needs to understand, whether you are rolling forward with making that regular and routine, despite all of the arguments you've heard, despite all of the questions that have been raised by various council members. Are you just going to ignore all of that and try to charge us that in the fare box?
Well, I want to first say, not ignoring, I've heard all the comments as well, but I could use your same methodology saying that the code says it's not capital either. So then it's this limbo area. So it's maintenance item, whether regular routine on as far as that number, or I should say as those terms, it is 100% not capital. And you stated it, the state auditor did an extensive audit on the ferry system. And we came back with no inappropriate use of how we were using those funds. So, I mean, here lies the problem with the existing code, which is
exactly,
why
but it's a problem with the existing code. The existing code only allows you at this point to charge the fare box regular and routine operating expenses, and the Dolphins are not regular and routine operating expenses. So I don't understand how you can act as if that limitation in the ordinance is not there and try to stick the 55% of the 800,000 into our fare box. I just don't understand that. I mean, because it seems to me to be a disregard of the black letter law.
I'm hearing your comments, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, Charles, I think you're next.
Yes, well,
Just hold on real quick.
Just 1 minute, Charles. We're just getting this together.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We are required.
I know. You know what, Charles, I'm so sorry, Charles. I don't think we're gonna be able to get to your question. We are required to have open session and we haven't gotten there yet because this has come so far.
Okay.
And there is one open session question and the council members have to leave for the 8th ferry. So I think we're gonna go to open session now. And the one person that signed up to speak is Kurt Esvelt. I know Kurt has a maritime background.
Yeah. Actually, you can probably just speak right here.
I could actually just
Yeah.
bring.
Sorry, this is very much off topic, but I was hoping, Director Koza, that soon you could share a revised schedule on design, bid, and construction for the ferry terminal and electrical component of the terminal.
We're all hoping that.
We don't have it yet. We are in the midst of working on that. When we have it, we'll make sure that we put together something for you.
Appreciate it very
Yep.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. So we're working with the design engineers. I'm communicating with James Lee every day. We're having 2 or 3 meetings a day. We have several issues that Richard Fry brought up with regard to keeping the time at passenger only to an absolute minimum, trying to break it up over 2 periods. We're looking at everything we can and looking at every possibility we can with permitting. It's really, permitting is holding us up on a lot of those issues. So some of that conversation has, we've had to take a little step back on the exact timing because we want to make sure we get it down to the right work schedule before we put it out to bid. But as soon as I have that, and I'm hoping to have that in more detail by the April, I mean, as in detail, by the April meeting, that's our goal that we're trying to accomplish.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. I think we're gonna have to close the meeting so that the county members can go to town. We really appreciate you coming. Councilmember Scanlon, Director Kosa, everyone, and we look forward to a positive, productive development of this code.
Could I just interject that the thing on the agenda we didn't get to is our work program for the rest of the year? And that would be subject to revision now anyway, to try and look and see how we can extend this, but
We will bring up we'll table the work program until our next meeting and bring it forward in a revised thing. So the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, I know Charles has already. The question was for
Yeah.
me or for.
Yeah.